It is the final day of school for a lot of kids in Western New York, including my son, Max. And I know a lot of people have already been off, but I think now we can finally turn the page and say, Matt, summer has begun. Welcome to It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. When does summer begin for you every year?
That's a good question. I don't know when it begins. I know when it ends. It ends when the Erie
Oh,
County it
that's
it
that's
ends it
the
ends
big debate
when
I
the
got.
Erie County Fair starts. That's when
Listen,
it ends. I don't know when
we
it
always
starts
have
though.
that debate. That's why I want to know when it started for you. Like, do you have a start? Because that is it training camp, Erie County Fair, all those things. What about when it starts for you?
When it starts is probably right when mandatory minicamp ends. I guess
Okay.
that's when I would consider my summer starting because then
Yep.
things kind of lighten the load. The load lightens up a little bit for me. So I would say once mandatory minicamp comes to an end, usually it's a good month and a half, 2 months before I kind of have to get back into like go, 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 all steam ahead mode.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I think sometimes you can consider it maybe July 4th, but by then kids are out. So for me, now that I have a son who's basically middle school age, he's going into sixth grade now, elementary to middle school. And I think that, it's kind of that's what the line of demarcation is. It's like when he's in school, when it's not, when he's
Yeah.
not. And now it's summertime for me. But in the meantime, not a great start to your summer, Matthew Bove, because you are a little bit under the weather. What happened?
I just got sick. I don't know what happened, but I feel like crap and I can't shake it. And it started, I was in Columbus for a concert and I started to really feel it the first day I got to Columbus. And, we went golfing and went to a great dinner and then had a concert the next day. So at that point, you're having fun. The adrenaline is pushing you through and you're just like, okay, this is fine. But then it really hit me the day we came home to the point we had to leave early and skip around to golf
Oh,
because
man.
I just didn't feel up to it. So I've still just kind of been weirdly in a little bit of like a haze to the point that I watched game 7 of the Stanley Cup and fell asleep on and off for the entire game. Like watched the first 2 goals, fell asleep, woke up in the second period, saw Reinhardt's goal, fell asleep again, woke up again, saw the ending, fell asleep. It just over and over and over. So I've realized what happened, but I did not watch the whole game. I watched like bits and pieces of it. I just was lucky that I caught the right pieces.
While we're on that subject, just quickly here on the Florida Panthers and winning the Stanley Cup, and even Connor McDavid winning the Conn Smythe. It's the only MVP that's given for the entire playoffs of the for professional sports. Super Bowl is the one game MVP. World
Mhm.
Series is the World Series MVP. NBA Finals is the NBA Finals MVP. He wins it for the entire playoffs, and I think that's why people wonder, like, why did he get it? They didn't win it. He had a couple games where he didn't score. What did you think about Connor McDavid winning the Conn Smythe?
I think the only reason they got to the point that they got to was because of him. And I think Florida was more of a team effort and Edmonton was more of a Connor McDavid was absolutely unbelievable. I would have liked to seen more in game 6 and game 7 from him specifically, but I don't think that takes away from what was an absolutely historic playoff performance from him specifically. There is no question who the best player in the world is. It's Connor McDavid, and he got his team all the way to game 7 of a Stanley Cup. Didn't have his best performance there, but I think that has a lot to do also with the people around him and not just him specifically. So I don't have any issue with it. I understand the argument that, hey, where was he in the final 2 games of the season? But I think the only reason they even got to that point was because of his just pure, he's just so spectacular. What he did in game 4, in game 5 was just so remarkable. Game 6 was just a really complete effort from Edmonton, and then whatever. Game 7, I think
Yeah.
I think the better team won. The better team was Florida for sure.
Now I'm gonna weave this next question into a Bills question because we have a lot to talk about here, and it's always game day, including starting our positional breakdown. We're gonna start with quarterback, and we're gonna talk about Josh Allen's contract, and then also what 2024 looks like at the quarterback position for the Bills. But this is a hockey question. I'll weave into a football question. Let's start it with this. Were you happy for the Florida Panthers, who used to play for the Buffalo Sabres, who now have their name on the Stanley Cup? Sam Reinhart, Kagla Poso, Brandon
Uh-huh.
Montour, Evan Rodriguez, and Dmitry Kulikov. I think I got them all. There could be more for all I know.
Yeah. Well, there's also I think Rasmus Asplund is on the roster. Also,
Jeez.
Rick Dudley is an
Okay.
assistant to the general
Yes.
manager. So
Yes.
there's a never-ending list of Buffalo connections to the Florida Panthers. Yeah, for sure. Certain ones more than others, definitely. Kyle Poso is just such an incredibly respectful and classy human. I like when good things happen to good people, and Kyle Poso is a good person. I
Yeah, I
understand
agree.
that there are people who think he could have done more as a captain to the Buffalo Sabres, but I hate the argument where people think that he's the reason why they weren't good. I think he just proved that he can be part of a good team
Yeah.
and at least have some sort of an impact. This is not like a Disney movie. This is not like he can walk in and be like, "Hey guys, we're going to play great." And then all of a sudden they start playing great. Their team wasn't very good. They didn't have a roster that was good enough. Like, it was not Kyle Oposo's fault that they thought it was a good idea to carry 3 goalies for most of the year. It wasn't Kyle Oposo's fault that they went out in the summer and signed Connor Clifton and Eric Johnson, and both of those never lived up to the expectations that they had. There's a lot of reasons why the Sabres never got to where they're trying to go. I think it should be I think the perspective is very interesting when you look and you see, oh, look, another former Sabre wins the Stanley Cup. Another former Sabre wins the Stanley Cup. That says a lot more about the Sabres organization than it does about the players who have left. Like, they need to figure something out because all these guys leave and they go on and they win. So I'm happy for Kyle, definitely, and some of the other guys too.
Okay, we don't really see this very often with the Bills because it's not as much of a turnover and going to these teams like you've seen with the Sabres. But I will ask it and weave it into a Bills question. Like I said, by the way, before I do that, thank you for bringing up Rick Dudley as the old guy on this set. Okay, I remember Rick Dudley, and I'm very happy for Rick Dudley, and that's really cool that Rick Dudley gets to be a part of a Stanley Cup. So I love that. So let's talk about the Bills players and some guys who've left, like Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs or Mitch Morse or Jordan Poyer, or take your pick. Who else? Saran Neal. I don't know. He's in Miami now, but it might matter because team players with the Dolphins. But what about those guys? Like Stephon Diggs gets a crack at the Super Bowl. Are you going to root for him, or do you think, oh my God, that just we can't have that happen?
Me, or what do I think fans will think? Because I think the answer is different. I like
So I'm
Stephon.
guessing you're going to say that you would root for him, but Buffalo fans won't.
I guess it would depend on the situation. I guess it would depend on who they were playing. I mean, if the Bills went to the AFC Championship and lost to Houston, I don't think anybody in Buffalo will be going, "Go on, Stephon. We hope that you win."
Right.
But, I think that there's levels to it. The way that Stephon Diggs' time in Buffalo ended is so interesting because I think it has now become so divisive of who would root for him and who wouldn't. I think if he stayed around another year and it was a little bit of a cleaner breakup, he would be an all-time loved Bill by a lot of people. I don't get that sense anymore. I mean, it was even that thing we talked about, the Mount Rushmore of Bills wide receivers. There were plenty of people who were saying, leave Stephon Diggs off of it. He only played here for 4 seasons. They just happen to be the 4 most productive seasons ever from a Buffalo Bills wide receiver. So Stephon Diggs is the interesting one. But I think you would get a ton of people rooting for Mitch Morse. I would think you would get a ton of people rooting for Gabe Davis. I don't think you would have anybody rooting for Jordan Poyer or Saran Neal just because of who they play for, not because
of the person, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just because of where they went.
So I'm looking back at the Super Bowl winners from recent history. Unless I'm forgetting, you tell me. Chiefs, Rams, Bucks, Chiefs. I think the last one really that we get to here is Stephon Gilmore and maybe even Chris Hogan. Like they had a few guys in the Patriots that had played for the Bills over the years. But I don't think anyone, Chiefs, Bucks, Rams, Chiefs, really comes to mind like this. But Stephon Gilmore was one that was really interesting because remember when he left and he said, now my people get to see me play on national television. And a lot of Bills fans, gave him some for that. I was always happy for Stephon. Stephon was a good guy when he was in Buffalo. So I did not mind that whatsoever.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also changes because the Bills are a legitimate contender. So because they're a legitimate contender, there would be some sort of resentment for any of those players who won, because that would also mean that the Bills didn't. So that's what I think also makes this so complicated. I don't think anybody after the first 2 months of the hockey season thought the Sabres had any chance of winning the Stanley Cup. So I think at that point, then you can kind of compartmentalize and come to grips a little bit with the fact that, okay, look, all of these former Sabres are going to once again probably win a Stanley Cup. I think it just all depends on the person, though. It depends on the situation. It depends on where they end up. And the Stephon Diggs one, I don't think people in Buffalo, or at least the vast majority of people in Buffalo, will ever really root for that guy again.
The reason why the Buffalo Bills are contenders, a big reason, is Josh Allen. He's going to be 28 years old this season. I think he already may have turned 28, but it's his 28-year-old season.
He just turned 28. Just turned 28.
Thank you for that. And we expect him to be in Buffalo for quite a long time. But a lot of things change when it comes to salary caps and contracts. We're seeing the changing landscape of the quarterback contracts in the NFL. So let's talk about Josh Allen and where he fits in with that. All right, Sal Capaccio, Matt Bove, it's always game day in Buffalo. Thanks a lot, by the way, for watching us on video. If you're just listening on the podcasting side, we are on video every single episode. Sal Sports YouTube channels where you go. If you're watching us, you can always just download us and subscribe. We'd love for you to do that wherever you podcast. Okay, Josh Allen's contract. Suddenly, this guy who was like the second or third highest paid quarterback in the league not too long ago, maybe 2 years ago, I guess, is going to be like ninth in the list, I think, very shortly. That doesn't feel right, obviously. You could even correct that if you think it's even more than that, right?
I think he's 11th. I think he's 11th. He's outside of the top 10. And I think that's going to fall even further whenever Tua gets a new contract.
So what are we looking at as far as Josh Allen and a new contract is concerned? Do the Bills need to worry about, I shouldn't say like worry like he wants to go somewhere or leave. That's not that sense, but worry about this getting a little messy and making sure that he gets taken care of before it gets to that point? Or will it happen in due time?
I think it'll happen in due time. I don't think this is something Josh is thinking about. We don't know what's going through his head, and we don't know what his agent is telling him. But I can't imagine this becoming, like a big storyline. And it started to become a little bit of a storyline because of something with Pro Football Talk. And then it started to get shared on social media. And I think Pardon My Take had a post on it. Basically, it was like, is Josh Allen being screwed by the Bills? This is what they took a gamble on signing a quarterback after one elite season. And Josh Allen, after one elite season, was willing to say, hey, listen, this is good enough for me. Like, this is what I want. I want to be in Buffalo. So I don't think that this is going to get to a point of contention anytime soon for either side. I really don't.
He is ninth in total guaranteed money, 100 million, 11th, as you said, in average per year, 43 million. But this is the way the game is played, Matt. I mean, for anybody to put, is he getting screwed? No, he's getting his money. And he was the last guy in line when he got his money, the next guy in line. Now the next guy in line gets his, and it's Justin Herbert. It's Joe Burrow. It's going to be Dak at some point. It's going to be Tua. We'll see where those contracts go. This is what happens with players as positions start to, leap each other. So I'm sure at some point, Josh Allen and his agent are going to go to the Bills and go, hey, we got to kind of work the contract. But the good news is Brandon Beane has already shown a willingness to rework his contract and give him a long-term deal and know he's going to be in Buffalo. They're going to make this work, and it's not going to be too cost prohibitive for the Bills to be able to do business. That's the other double-edged sword of it, which is even if you're Josh Allen, hey, yes, I want to get paid with something which starts with a 6, basically, right? But how much does that impact what we can do around me to be able to win Super Bowls? So those things are going to happen probably every, 4, 5, 6 years.
I think that they need to figure out, too, if they do that, what does it look like? What kind of – because they're not just going to go and do a new contract with the same term. They're going to add years onto his current contract.
Correct.
And it's going to be, what is the number of years you would feel comfortable committing to this guy? And right now, I can't envision a future for the Buffalo Bills without Josh Allen, but he is 28. So once we start to have the conversations of 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, I don't know what Josh Allen is going to be like as a player in 5, 6, 7 years. I feel really good about what he's going to look like for the entire remainder of his current contract, but I don't know how much I would be willing to extend it beyond that. I mean, the question is going to be, does he have the Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers type length of career, or does he have the Cam Newton length of a career? I don't think it's either. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, because he's even talked about, like, the way that he plays, he doesn't know if he would get to 40 years old playing the game. So they would have to figure out a time. I do kind of always get the sense, and who knows, because you never know what's going to happen. Doesn't it kind of just feel like Josh Allen is going to play for the Bills and only the Bills and probably never go anywhere else?
Oh, it always, I think with a guy like this, you always feel that way. It always feels like it. But at the end of the day, I mean, Aaron Rodgers went somewhere else. Brett Favre went somewhere else. Tom Brady went somewhere else. Joe Montana went somewhere else. You never rule it out, right? That's what happens to these players at the very ends of their careers. We're a long way from that. And just so fans know, Josh has 5 years remaining on his current deal. It runs through 2028. He'll be 32 years old. To me, you still have room to add on 4 or 5 more years after that. Guys are playing up till almost 40 years old. I agree with you. You don't know if Josh Allen can do it based on his style, but I also would say that 32 isn't too old. You can still afford to add a few more years.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I would feel comfortable with probably at least 3 more years on the end of what he is currently. That would get him to 36 years old. The numbers are just continuing to skyrocket around the league. His cap hit, becomes $60 million next year. That's strictly from the cap hit. Then it goes to 56, 49, 45. So it's we're on a bell curve right now, and we are at the top of the bell curve. We're about to be the top of the bell curve, and then it's going to start to work its way down. What I assume that they do is I would assume they kind of push the money, if they do decide that they want to do a new contract with him, push the money once again towards the right now and let it continue to fall down as time goes on, as he gets older, as the risk becomes a little bit higher.
Let me ask you this, would you be in favor of the NFL implementing, and this would have to be collectively bargained, we know that, so who knows if it could ever happen, instituting a separate quarterback salary cap where the quarterback can only make a certain percentage of each team's cap?
It's a really good question. I don't know how I feel about that because it is such a crucial piece to a team that I think you should be able to decide as a team what you're willing to spend, because I do think that it should be more difficult to build around a team if you have an elite quarterback. I think it would be too much of an advantage if there was a separate quarterback salary cap for the teams that have good quarterbacks. So I think that I like the way that it's done right now. I know it is a big advantage to have a quarterback on a rookie contract, but that's the way it should be because that's just the way that the league works.
Yeah, I as a football fan, would be in favor of it because I don't think you should be penalized for having a great quarterback. The Bills are kind of getting penalized for taking a chance on Josh Allen and developing him, and now he's one of the best in the league. So now you suddenly can't pay everybody else around your roster as you should be rewarded for that. However, that said, if you do that, you're basically penalizing the players for not making as much as they can make in a free market society, right? Even though you have a salary cap, that's always a tough deal to say, wow, we're going to cap your salary a little bit specially here. So it's a really tough thing to kind of have to go down that road. But there is talk. People believe that maybe they'll do that someday.
Yeah, well, then that brings us then to the running backs. And should there be some sort of different rules that surround running backs and how they've become less valued over the years? And I don't know how you can, even though it's so clearly obvious what positions are more important than others, I don't know if you can put rules and regulations around them. I think that's just changing the game and changing the way they've done business way too much.
Wonder if they would just do a blanket, no one player on any team can eat up more than blank amount of salary cap. And it might, that way you could say whatever, and it's going to be the quarterback for most teams, but a team on a rookie deal then they wouldn't be able to pay their wide receiver as much or their running back as much or something like that. Or how about this? You go the other way. You can go the other way. Maybe do what the NBA does. You give an exemption for one player on a team or something like that, right? Like it doesn't necessarily work the exact same way, but maybe the NFL ultimately goes, hey, you know what? Everybody's got this salary cap, but quarterbacks, they don't have a cap. You can pay them whatever. I don't know. But it just seems like it's getting so astronomically high for all these teams. And by the way, cry me a river for the NFL making so much money anyway.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, though. On an open market, with that rule, that stipulation, what do Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen make per year? Is it $100 million?
In the 70s right now. In the 70s, they would make 70 something million. No one's making 100 million a year right now. So I don't think you'd go that high. Some team would say, we're going to make you the highest by far. You're going to get in the 70s.
Could you imagine? And the one thing too, this is not strictly tied to football, but just turn on a television and watch how often you see Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. So for those guys, their average yearly, salary, 10th, 11th, whatever it is, that's from just the NFL. Those guys are certainly getting paid. I mean, Josh has contracts now with Gatorade, with Subway, with Verizon, I think with DirecTV. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. The guys ahead of them on that list do not have that. Some of them do, but not to the level that they do. So I would imagine what they actually make a year is probably pretty comparable, if not higher, for the guys like Mahomes and Allen. They're just getting their money in a lot of different ways.
So the highest paid quarterbacks per year right now, Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow on their new deals, $55 million a year. Then Goff at 53. That was a big one that was recently signed. Justin Herbert, 52.5, Lamar Jackson at 52, Jalen Hurts at 51. Those are your 50-plus guys. But at Lawrence and Burrow at 55, you asked me the question, what would Allen and Mahomes get? I think if they're in that situation, I think you're going even above the 60s. Maybe you're getting 65, 66, and some team says, we'll give you 70. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, as the Bills head into 2024, we know they have Josh Allen. They also obviously re-signed Mitch Trubisky from a couple years ago, bringing him back. Matt and I are going to start looking at every position, going position by position. Let's start with the quarterback. Mitch Trubisky, backup quarterback for the Buffalo Bills once again. Shane Buechele is the third string. It's going to be like that. He's not going to beat out Mitch for the second string job based on, them bringing Mitch back and what they gave him. Are you good with Mitch Trubisky filling in for Josh Allen for 3-4 games if Josh Allen were to go down?
I guess it depends on what 3 or 4 games they are, because I think that his job is to tread water. If anything happens to Josh Allen long-term, they're done. But you could say the same thing for any good team in the league. Look what happened to the Bengals last year. The Bengals actually got pretty good replacement level quarterback play, but it was still not enough to ultimately get them to the playoffs. Let me ask you this question, and I think that this will shape a lot of the Trubisky conversation here. Where does he rank as far as a backup quarterback in the NFL? Do you think he's average, above average, or below average?
I think he is average to above. I do not think he's below average, but you could do a lot worse than Mr. Trubisky, I think.
I agree. I think that he's closer to above average than he is to below average, but I don't even think that means that he could come in here and win you games. I think that he could come in and manage games, but I don't think that he would be the reason why they would win games. I think what they need from Mitch Trubisky is, hey, dude, can you turn around and hand it to James Cook 25 times instead of what they might normally do 15 times? Complete a couple short passes and let the guys around you really take over. And if you can do that, then maybe they would be able to win a couple games with him as their quarterback. I don't feel confident in anybody other than Josh Allen back there. You could say, who is the best backup in the NFL right now? I don't know the answer to that question. Who do you think is the best backup?
Well, I have to go through every team's depth chart, right? I mean, the Browns have actually a fairly decent depth chart, I think. Is it Jameis Winston as their backup, maybe? I mean, that's not a bad backup to have.
No, it's him and it's PJ Walker, right?
Right. No, hold on a second. PJ Walker went to it's Tyler Huntley now. He went from the Ravens to the Browns.
Oh yeah, it's Tyler Huntley.
Watson, Winston, Huntley, and Dorian Thompson Robinson. So actually, that's not bad. So maybe Jameis Winston could be the guy here. If you want to go that route.
I think I found the answer. As of right now, it's Justin Fields, probably, right?
Maybe, I don't know. I guess depending on what you feel about Justin Fields, he hasn't really done much for me.
I guess my point is, so it's right now, this list I'm looking at, it's Jacoby Brissett, Justin Fields, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jameis Winston, Jake Browning, Joe Flacco, all these guys. I would feel the same about the Bills with any of those guys as I do with Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
Even though those are the best guys. You know what I mean? I feel a little bit more confident with Justin Fields than I would with Mitch Trubisky. But if you're in a game against the Dolphins and you have Justin Fields is your quarterback for the Bills, I don't feel confident in that game. I wouldn't feel confident with Mitch Trubisky either. But, maybe they could win a couple games. I think that they're fine. What is that line from Marv? It's like depth is great until you need it. That's how I always feel about backup quarterbacks.
I tell you, honestly, the Jets with Tyrod Taylor, I think that's a nice situation, right? If Aaron Rodgers goes down, not like last year, and you have to play, 17, 18 games, not like that. I mean, if you have to have a guy fill in for Aaron Rodgers, I think Tyrod Taylor's a very suitable replacement for the New York Jets. I think they did a good job there.
Absolutely. I think so too. I think that he would be somebody you would still, because of how good the team is, he is somebody who I think could tread water for a little bit of a longer period of time and still be, Tyrod Taylor almost came in and beat the Bills in that game against.
That's right.
It wasn't just on him. It was a lot more of what the Bills did. Not that what the Giants did, but he had them close to winning that game. So I think they have two options now that are better than anything they had last year once Rodgers got hurt.
All right, let's spend our last 5 minutes talking about what you did this weekend. You went to a concert. What did you see?
Oh, so
Who
okay.
did you see?
Do you know who Zach Bryan is?
I do know who Zach Bryan is. I've never seen
So
Zach Bryan, but I know who that is.
I went and saw Zach Bryan, and it was at Ohio Stadium. It was my first
Oh,
time ever, and this is not meant to be a shot. It was my first time in what I would consider like a real college football stadium. I have covered games at UB Stadium, and I know that
okay.
that's a nice
Yeah.
stadium as far as Western New York college
It's
athletics
not
is
the
concerned,
horseshoe.
but it's not the Horseshoe. So that was my first time ever in like a big time college stadium, which
Okay.
was massive. So to see a concert with that many people was pretty crazy because I'd been to a couple shows at Highmark Stadium, but even Highmark Stadium is nothing compared to the Horseshoe. By the time you block off the seats, like I saw Luke Combs at Highmark Stadium a couple months ago, there was probably like 50, 55,000 people. This one, even with the seats blocked off, was probably 80 or 90.
So, do you go to a lot of concerts? Have you been to a lot of concerts?
I don't go to as many as some people. I would say a couple a year.
Is that can you what's the best concert you've gone to for whatever reason? Do you have one?
Oof, this is up there. This was up there because it was really, really good. He was really good live. What are some of the other great shows that I think I've seen? I loved Garth Brooks because he puts on an
You went to Garth?
unbelievable show.
I've never seen Garth live.
I went to a Coldplay show that was pretty
Me too.
incredible. They put
We went.
on a really, really good show. So I've liked Coldplay when I've seen
Yep.
them.
I've gone to see Coldplay. Yep.
I've seen Paul McCartney, which was pretty awesome. I saw Paul McCartney in Toronto, and that was very cool. And then, we talked on this podcast, I will be going to see Taylor Swift in the fall, the day
Yes.
before the Bills play the Chiefs. So I would imagine that's probably pretty surreal. But yeah, I really like a lot of different types of music, but I'm not a huge concert guy. Like I would prefer, this is just me personally, to go to a sporting event. Like if I'm
Yeah.
going to spend money to buy a ticket to something, I would rather go see a sports venue that I haven't been to than a musician or performer that I haven't seen.
Well, I've knocked off that list on all in one because I saw Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden.
That's sick. That's really cool. Really, really cool.
I'm trying to put together a list right now of concerts, and I've seen some pretty darn good acts.
Yeah.
I'm a big U2 fan. I think they put on an amazing concert, but I love their music.
I've seen them
U2 5 times in 4 different cities.
Oh, that's cool.
I've seen them in Buffalo twice.
What was the best venue?
Well, I've seen them in Buffalo twice, Boston, Tampa, and Cleveland. And Tampa was really cool. I think also depending on your perspective, we were very close in Buffalo though for the latest one. This 2017, that was 40th anniversary of Joshua Tree. But I think they put on a fantastic live concert. So I've seen Pearl Jam. Awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen did 3 hours straight. Did not stop. Absolutely incredible concert. You said Coldplay. I saw Motley Crue. I'm a big Motley Crue fan. They came to Darien Lake. Although it wasn't the greatest show, it was hilarious. It was great, like in a nostalgia way, because Vince Neil's voice was so bad that he just cranked up the music really loud. You didn't have to hear him that much.
That's funny.
And I've seen the Goo Goo Dolls quite a few times. In fact, I will tell you that last year saw the Goo Goo Dolls on a private concert. Basically, I was standing as close to Johnny Resnick as I am to this camera right there. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So yeah, I've had Journey and Def Leppard, saw them together at KeyBank Center a couple years ago. Paula Abdul, Boys to Men. I've seen all of these. So it's I think I have a pretty good group.
Do you remember your first concert?
First concert I ever went to, real concert, was, I believe, Montel Jordan opening up for Boys to Men.
Wow. Okay.
When I was a student at Syracuse. That was 95 maybe at Syracuse.
Okay. My first concert, I vividly remember all of this. My first concert, I went to see Styx. It was a free show with my parents at Art Park. So it was my mom, my dad, my sister, and I. And, we grew up in Wheatfield, so Lewiston is only like 15, 20 minutes away. And my parents wanted to see Styx. It was in the summer, so it was totally cool to bring us to a Styx show. And I remember there were a bunch of people smoking weed at the concert. And my mom was telling us that smell, we were like, what's that smell? Because we were still kids. We didn't know. And I was like, "What's that smell?" And my mom was like, "Oh, that's bug spray. That's like really good bug spray. That's what you're smelling. It's bug spray."
That's
So
amazing.
that was always our joke of like whenever we smelled
I
weed,
love
it
it.
was like, "Oh yeah, you can smell the bug spray over there," because that's what they told us as we were little kids. And then we were sitting there at a Styx concert.
Speaking of Art Park, saw Sting at Art Park actually several years ago. My wife is a really big Sting fan. So we saw Sting. Let me ask you this. Is there somebody, an artist or group you have not seen that you really want to see besides one you're going to already, Taylor Swift? I get that, but
Mhm.
just someone you like, you know what? If that person or if that artist, that group, whatever goes on tour, I just really would like to see that.
Hmm. That's a really good question. And I don't have an answer for you, which maybe speaks to my interest in general of just going to concerts. I don't
Mhm.
have somebody who I immediately would get to. I would say, like, oh, I really want to see that person. I've seen most of the country artists that I really like. I like a lot of different types of music, but I think I'm really just going for kind of the show, for the spectacle of it. So I don't have somebody who I was like, ooh, that's a bucket list. I really want to see them. I think I would have said Taylor Swift just because of all the excitement and buzz around the show. And knock on wood, I'll be able to do that in Toronto in a couple months.
I'll tell you one that I've always think about that I'd like to see. I'd like to see Adele. I think she's amazing.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
I'd love to hear Adele sing. I think her voice is unbelievable. I'd like to. Now she is on tour right now. I was just looking, but I'm looking at she's in Europe right now, so I don't know when she comes back to United States. Oh, Vegas. Let's see where she is. Oh, she's in Vegas a lot. So I guess I got to go to Vegas to see Adele. So there you go.
That would be worth it. She's got a residency there, right?
I think so. Yes, I think she does. That's right. In Vegas, I've been to Vegas. I saw Blue Man Group in Vegas. That's a pretty good show.
Is it? Is
Oh
it?
yeah,
I saw Cirque du Soleil in Vegas.
yeah.
I bought my wife tickets to a really small. The Jonas Brothers had a residency in Vegas for a couple years or for a couple months,
Well,
but
they
it was
came
right
here to
before.
Buffalo.
Yeah, you want to talk about just like taking one for the team? I know 3 Jonas Brothers songs. Maybe. I don't even know. That was the day after the Eagles game, and it was my birthday. It was November 27th, and my wife wanted to go, and I was
Yeah.
like, "That's fine. We can spend my birthday after I spent the day coming back from Philly to go to a Jonas Brothers concert." So I did that in November, and I have a hard time when I go to a concert for a bunch of songs that I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I just can't
Yes.
get into it when I don't know any of the music. So I get that people love them, but I was like, meh, cool, whatever.
We were there too. You know why? Because Max wanted to go. He likes the Jonas Brothers. So we went. And I actually remember that date as well because it was like a day or two before my colonoscopy. So that's why I
Uh,
remember going to see the Jonas Brothers.
you
Matt, I
know
hope
what
you
though?
feel go ahead.
Smart on you because it was also the bye week. So you
Oh yeah.
scheduled it
That's why I did it.
during the bye. You
Yes.
scheduled it during the bye week,
Yes.
and then if you remember, I scheduled my foot surgery the year prior, also during the bye week when I had that stupid little scooter. So I was rolling around during the first week back. I remember rolling into the Sunday night Packers game on the scooter and just feeling like an absolute loser. So hopefully we don't have any procedures scheduled for the bye week this year for either of us.
Well, buddy, I hope you feel better. And Matt doesn't always sound like this. He's pushing through it. You can find him on WKBW TV channel 7, obviously in Buffalo. You can find me on WGR Sports Radio 550. You can find us always on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo, wherever you pod, and of course at the Sal Sports YouTube page. So Matt, I hope you feel a lot better, buddy. And yeah, let's not schedule anything right now. We'll see how it goes this summer.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes this summer, and we'll talk soon, and I won't sound like this.
Thanks a lot to Mike Robbie, our producer. We'll talk to you next time, and It's Always Game Day in Buffalo.